James, I'm sick of you buying obnoxious cars. Isn't it time you get something more sophisticated?
Isn't it time you start bringing something more exciting to Wednesday Night Poker? Don't listen to Stephanie.
You're watching Throttle House, and my name is Thomas Holland.
And I'm James Engelsman.
And you're probably thinking that this is a weird comparison, and it is. But you might end up in a point in your life where you go, I don't know if I want the bright orange 5-liter Mustang. Maybe I want the more sophisticated 4-door Genesis G70. And as we look at these cars, you're going to start to realize that every single aspect of their design plays into their character.
Yeah, even their keys.
What do you mean?
Their keys. The Genesis key is refined and reserved and sophisticated and almost businesslike.
Yeah.
And then the Mustang key.
James, this is a serious car review. If you want the key to work, it's a proximity key. You have to be near the car. Fool.
In the beginning, there was Hyundai. Wait, hold on. Genesis. Yeah, Genesis. The G70, in fact. And God saw what he had made, and it was good. Underneath the hood of the G70 lies a 3.3-litre twin-turbo V6, putting out 365 horsepower and 376 pound-feet of torque. Power that, unlike the Mustang, is delivered to all four wheels. And yet the design gives no clues to how fast this car really is. All things that by rights should make for a special vehicle. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Alright, the only words that matter here are naturally aspirated, V8, manual, and rear-wheel drive. The rest of it, you just find a way to justify to yourself, and maybe your spouse. So this is a question that I have often asked. Is a Mustang too much of a statement? Too much of a compromise? And if the Genesis G70 wasn't so good at what it does, I wouldn't even be asking this question. However, today we are going to drive each of these cars to find out if the Genesis is enough fun to keep an enthusiast happy, or if the Mustang just has something extra that you can't find anywhere else. So before we get into it, subscribe and hit the bell because we have a new review or comparison every Wednesday.
Okay, so the Genesis is not a naturally aspirated V8 that makes the sound of 10,000 lions, but it is a twin-turbo 3.3-litre V6. What does that mean? It means it can hustle. I put my foot down, and it goes. It doesn't make the same sound as the Mustang, which is a shame because that thing sounds glorious. Thomas is burbling it in front of me at the moment.
So if you do choose the less practical option, if you choose the car that's a little bit more brash, more aggressive, the good news is that you get one of the best driver's cars on sale today.
But what this has that doesn't have is an all-wheel drive system, which means you can floor it with confidence and you know it's just going to put the power down. Okay, yep, that reaches speeds that are illegal very quickly. Yep, certified fast, absolutely. It's not blinding speed, but it's definitely above that speed where you're like, well, you know, if I need to pull out before a car's coming, I can do it. It's faster than that. Okay, so we know this car can move, but what else are you sacrificing by not buying something as loud and proud as a Mustang? Well, we actually have an LSD on this car and Brembo brakes. Who'd have thought? So if you had that boy racer dream of having something with Brembo brakes on it, you actually still get it with this Genesis, which is quite welcome.
The Mustang GT is genuinely one of the most fun and engaging cars that you can buy, period. That's including all cars. Because even though this generation has, as we know, gone away from the solid rear axle, we have independent rear suspension, we have sophisticated magnetic ride dampers, there's a lot of good tech in here. Really high red line in this V8. It's still a handful. It's still a car that you have to pay attention when you're driving in the wet. If you're below the temperature that the tires want to be at, you end up with a car that will very abruptly and very aggressively snap away on you. That doesn't mean that it's not controllable though. That's the thing. in a straight line in the dry, you can light up the rear tires in a really, really, really fun way.
And not only do you get all that, you get it with a much fancier package on the inside, and what I can only assume are comfier seats. The Mustang is fitted with the Recaros, whereas this has these lovely stitched seats. I'm also of the opinion that the Mustang, in the spec that Thomas is driving, orange, GT, V8, loud exhausts, it's quite a one-dimensional car, and I'm prepared to change that opinion when driving it. However, this car is multiple personality, which is very nice for if you're in town. You can have it in comfort mode. The damping is super soft. It takes bumps so nicely. I live downtown, so there's streetcar tracks and potholes and bumps, and this thing has been an absolute breeze. So when I'm in the city, I'll drive it in comfort mode. In fact, there's even a smart mode that tries to guess how you want to use the car. So if you're driving around the city or on the highway, it switches you to the eco mode. And if you put your foot down quite hard, it will switch you to sport mode. The sport mode in this car makes... The sport mode in this... Shut up, Thomas!
The 10-speed in the 5-liter Mustang is very good. I've driven the car with the 10-speed, and it shifts incredibly fast. The paddles are fun to use. But if you're buying a Mustang, you really do want the manual. That's the whole thing about it. If you're buying the car that is genuinely less practical, has less storage space, is less sophisticated, less grown up, maybe. You want the one that makes you have to do more driving, because that's why you bought this one. So buy the manual transmission, because the gears are fantastically sharp. The clutch is, you have to learn the clutch in a good way. The first time you get in this car, you might get a little bit of a jerky shift because the clutch engages like that. And that allows you to shift at flat out speeds, and it just grabs the next gear in the most aggressive way. And that's what breaks the rear tires loose, and it's so fun. It really is so fun. Put it this way, if you live in a snowy climate and you're gonna drive your Mustang year round, leave the traction control on and get some snow tires.
The sport mode in this car is actually quite interesting, because normally when you have a sport mode in a car, it does 3 things normally quite quickly. It will stiffen suspension, sharpen throttle response, and make the steering wheel heavier. And also, a lot of the time, the dash starts to go red. This car does all of those things, but the thing that is most obvious and interesting when you switch it to sport mode, and I'm going to do that now, is that the bolsters in the seats suddenly come in and hug your back, which I haven't figured out how to do that out of sport mode. But it's very strange. For someone like me who lives thousands of miles from home, it makes me feel like my mum's hugging me. And it's nice. It's not a violent maneuver. We're in sport mode now. So come here, give me a hug. I like being in sport mode.
Now, before we set off on a back road here, I've got a couple driving modes. I'm going to select Sport Plus. There is a track mode, which backs off the traction control completely, puts the exhaust, the adjustable exhaust, in track mode. But Sport Plus mode gives you the sport steering, it gives you the sport dampers, and the sport exhaust. And all of those things mean that the car is still usable on a road, but so fun. Listen. That doesn't get old ever. The Mustang has the availability of getting a proper limited slip differential in the rear. And now I don't know what it is. Obviously, I've driven a lot of cars with LSDs in the rear wheel drive cars. Like BMW M cars have a fairly advanced, like pneumatically actuated, electro-hydraulic clutch plate differential that can transfer torque in different ways. I don't even know if I got all that right. The point is that it's very advanced and it doesn't feel like you have an LSD all the time. This car feels like you have an LSD all the time. In low speed corners, you can feel it trying to send power to the inside wheel. And you can actually, it reminds me of driving a car with a welded diff, because you can actually sometimes hear, I don't know if however the diff is designed and the suspension setup, you can hear it skipping the inside wheel sometimes in a tight corner, which means that when you apply power, it's ready to break away the rear. And you can pull off epic power slides in these cars. And it's very controllable at the limit. I've driven a Mustang at the track, and I can tell you that yeah, it feels pretty unruly on the road sometimes. You get some wet leaves and some mud and dirt, and the rear snaps and you go, ugh. But on a track, when you get these Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's up to temperature and you're really ripping it around a fast corner, the car is well balanced and it can be driven so fast. This is a proper driver's car, and it is a properly well-designed driver's car.
Okay, Genesis, do me proud. Oh, it just keeps the traction. I love all-wheel drive sometimes. I really do. There's something about it being able to keep the traction and while you put your foot down that's just so satisfying. Guaranteed if I did the same thing in the Mustang, I wouldn't have a Mustang anymore. Everything in this car feels upmarket. Everything you touch is soft, there's leather wrapped surfaces. Yes, you could accuse it of looking a bit like the inside of a coffin, but one would hope that that's a cozy place to be anyway, and this is that. And I'm trying to figure out what this car's missing. All I can think of at the moment is massaging seats. It has a sunroof, it has the heads-up display, it has the heated and cooled seats. It also comes with all the safety gadgets, like adaptive cruise control.
Now, I don't know if you've driven any of the old Mustangs, or any old Camaro, or any old V8 muscle car. They were hilarious because the gears weren't, there's 3 gears maybe, they were incredibly long gears, and it revved to like, I don't know, 4,000 RPM or something like that. And you kind of had this like feel to it. This car doesn't have that. There's a GT 3.3t out there, which is genuinely an exotic car. This is not, this is just a regular cross-plane crank V8 that has a kind of exhaust note to it, and it's really warbly and like that. This is not my favorite type of engine. I'm more of a Porsche flat 6 kind of guy. But this car revs so high that it feels exotic. It doesn't feel like an old pony car. I've got a lot of really good tech in this car. I really do. This digital cluster, this is the coolest part of the Mustang. It's fully customizable. Each mode gives me a different screen. It represents different things. It looks like an old rev gauge. There's a drag strip mode, there's a track mode, there's a sport mode, and they all have different style gauges. And I can customize the colors, primary and secondary, so I can get green. And right now I have purple and green. That looks cool. I don't know why. I also have an oil pressure gauge, and it's like a proper old style gauge. I feel like I want to tap it to make sure it's working, and you can change the color of those as well.
It's actually surprisingly fun to put your foot down in what is considered a luxury sedan, and a Hyundai luxury sedan, well, Genesis. As for the looks of this car, I think the G in Genesis is guilty of being a bit generic. I think it's like Grand Theft Auto said, let's do a luxury sports sedan, and then they made this. It's definitely not ugly by any means, but on some level, it does feel like an amalgamation of a lot of current sedans on the market.
The rest of the interior of the Mustang is nothing special. The design is good, okay, but it's not like ultra high quality. This is one of these things where every time I say this in a review, there's at least 50 people that will comment and say, oh, he's wrong, American, like, the interior is really good. Like, okay, I'm seeing things I think that you might not be seeing. If you've only ever driven muscle cars, you might not notice what I'm comparing it to. But it's the quality of the leather, it's the quality of the materials that I'm seeing. And the quality of the leathers, there is like leather stitching everywhere, and it's well done, there's no flaws. But the quality of the plastics and the leather is not very high. That's what I'm kind of talking about. It's not bad, but the problem is that for the price, this is actually costs more than that Genesis G70 that James is in behind me a few cars back because he's slow. And he has a car that has a luxurious interior. This is not a luxurious interior.
The Genesis is such a comfortable ride. It's fast, it's smooth, the road noise is not loud. On the highway I'm able to talk at 100 kilometers an hour and I don't have to raise my voice at all. And I would bet money that you do have to raise your voice in that Mustang. The seating position is great. We have an electric adjustable steering wheel and electric seats. There really isn't a position you can't get this seat into that suits your needs. I found the infotainment very intuitive to use. It has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's very clean. The sound system is fantastic. I really can't fault this car for anything that's missing. I think the only thing that this is lacking still a little bit is identity. But I think Genesis have made great strides with that, because if you look at the generation before, it doesn't look nearly as sharp as this.
Now, let's get to some of the issues that I have with the Mustang as a daily vehicle. It's still a coupe. The rear seats are really small, not very well made. It's not, I don't find these Recaros to be ultra comfortable. The regular Mustang seats are a little bit better. It's not a car that is simple to drive every day. You have to pay attention when you drive it, especially if it's cold or wet. The thing about driving a Mustang every day is that it's a bit much for most situations. It's kind of like trying to perform dental surgery with a jackhammer. You'd have to be really, really careful, and it probably still won't go well.
This car is fantastic. It has everything you need. It's fast, it's comfortable, it's all-wheel drive. But it's a Genesis. It's a brand that is yet to be fully established as something that can be said in the same conversation as things like BMW, Alfa Romeo, Mercedes. And I think that's the important thing about this car, is it's not going for that demographic. This is a car that appeals to someone who just wants to buy something that's quality. I think what I'm trying to say is that no one with a Supreme hat or backpack or sweater that says, basically if you have Supreme labelled anywhere on your person, you're not shopping for a Genesis. But does it have the same sense of occasion about it as a bright orange manual V8 Mustang? I'm about to find out.
Now, here's the thing though. The Mustang is such a fun driver's car. It's such a good car to drive every day, and especially if you go to a track, that you might not care about all of those things, because you can put your foot down and you are on it, right? I had to pay attention to accelerate in a straight line right there. And it kind of doesn't get old to drive, and you might just not care about the fact that it's not the most sophisticated or refined car in the world, because it is so much fun. So, something that I've been waiting to do for a long time, because I've personally had this question. I'm now gonna go drive a Genesis G70, and that is a car that costs about the same, still has some really good performance figures, and I wanna figure out if it's something that I would go, I'm okay with a Genesis because it's still fun enough that I don't need the rear-wheel drive Mustang.
So immediate first impressions is, it's a much more simple interior. It starts to knock on the door of the price range where the interior shouldn't be suffering. But like we found out when we drove the 1LE Camaro recently, normally when the American car brands do that, they make up for it with a whole lot of performance, and this has that.
Oh, I forgot how much of a slap in the face the G70 is to all the other luxury car manufacturers for the price. This car is so comfortable. All right, I want to be fast. Let's select sport mode, please. Foot down. V6, so much torque is available at low RPMs. This feels so much easier to drive. And that is why you might want one of these. So much torque right away. Yeah. I love the G70. It has just such a fantastic engine. You can get a rear-wheel drive G70 with a 2-liter turbo, which honestly does not compete with the Mustang, as the Mustang has it in every aspect, and I would get the Mustang over that. But this is still so good and so fun that it would be hard for me to justify it. But the thing is that it's missing that one thing. Missing that one thing. I know this sounds ridiculous, and James has shook his head at me before when I say this, but it's missing danger.
These Recaro seats may not be great for a long drive, but they feel very grippy. They fit me nicely, actually. Squirrely even on the straights. Yep. It sounds so good, and I know what it sounds like from the outside because I was behind Thomas before. The brakes are sharper in this. The acceleration is more aggressive in this. It's louder. Instead of the leather wrap surfaces of the Genesis, we're greeted with slightly harder plastics in the interior and faux carbon fibery stuff across the center, which I'm not a huge fan of. That red line is so high. I only got to 4,000 revs there in third gear. I'm halfway to the red line. Which also means that if you're in third gear and you're putting your foot down, in order to hit red line, you're probably doing very illegal speeds, no matter where you live.
For me, a guy who frequents the track and really likes to drive at the limit, at the track, not on the road obviously, the Mustang is just, it's got more to it. It's you have to pay attention when you're driving it. And while I just complained about that, when you get into something like this, everything's so much more subdued. So if you were going to drive a car every day, I honestly don't know which one that I would want, because I can handle the rear wheel drive. I can deal with it. It takes a little bit more brain power to drive that thing when it's really greasy out, but I don't know. The G70 is still properly fast. And there's so much confidence to the way that it takes off. No risk whatsoever. But maybe that risk is what I'm looking for? I don't know. At this point in my life, I kind of want the risk. I kind of want the fun. I kind of want the edge that the Mustang gives.
The shifter is nice and notchy. Nice and notchy. I was in an M2 recently, and I find the shifter in the M2's got a little bit of too much throw, too much give. This is a nice notchy shifter. Police just went past, which in the Genesis, you're not so conscious of the police when you're in the Genesis, but in here, it seems like you're in a cop magnet. You've got the bright orange car with the racing stripe and the spoiler and the loud noise. So keep in mind, if you want to stay under the radar but still go fast, the Genesis is probably the move. Yeah, the Genesis doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. Oh, it's a rush. Okay, if you don't like rushes, Genesis. If you like rushes, Mustang. If you like the band Rush, both cars, because they both have good speaker systems. Oh, I want to do that again. And I'm going to. Yep. No, that's how you get in trouble. That is how you get in trouble. If you were someone that gave your homework in on time, this is not the car for you. First gear, pull! Ooh, lost the back end there. Oh. No, the construction workers, they'll see me, they know I don't belong. Sorry, I've taken your car.
I just don't know. But oh my god, this is so hard to decide. I literally don't know which of these cars is more fun, because so the G70, I'll hit you with some more information that maybe James didn't cover. This is a longitudinally mounted rear-wheel drive based car. Very similar drivetrain to a BMW, which is no accident. A lot of BMW engineers were poached in the design of this. So the engine is going this way. The V is going like this in front of me. And the transmission tunnel comes down here all the way to a diff at the back, and we've got two axles in the front, obviously because it's all-wheel drive. That means that the weight is really far inboard, and it's a very well-balanced vehicle. It's the type of car that it understeers when you push it into a fast corner. However, if you enter the corner correctly, maybe trail brake in a little bit or lift in the middle of a corner in the right way, it will become very neutral. It's a car that you can find the balance of and still have a really good time driving at the limit.
But there is a sense of occasion about this car that the Genesis doesn't have. The Genesis, if I had to pin it down as an occasion, it's that promotion you just got after years and you've just made partner. Whereas this is the sort of occasion where you just got divorced and your buddies come round and you start shotgunning beers because they never really liked her anyway. That's what this is. It's a celebration of freedom mixed with a little bit of anarchy. There's a white Dodge Charger behind me, and I just thought it was another car enthusiast, but it's very likely it could be a policeman as well. So I'm gonna press the Genesis button that turns this into a Genesis. Where is it? Where is the button that turns it back into a subtle car that doesn't get me in trouble?
G70, it's not like it all falls apart when you really get it on the limit. When you really drive this car 10/10ths, even on a back road like this, the damping is fantastic, the steering is good, it's really sharp, it turns into the corner, and it responds to your inputs, especially in sport mode. And if you can have the delicacy to extract those feelings, to extract what the car is capable of, and feel that through your hands and through your seat, then you might be able to take the G70 and have just as much fun with it as you could the Mustang. And then you get the benefits of the very nice interior, heated seats, steering wheel, and cooled seats, and all of the goodies that you get in a luxury car while still having a good time. So I guess it comes down to the person. As for me, I don't know. I don't know which one I want, because I think at this point in my life, I still kind of want the car that's harder to drive, but is more rewarding when you drive it fast, which would be the Mustang. But at the same time, I can't deny that I'm quite comfortable, that I'm having a good time in this car.
So after about a week of deliberation, I decided that since I spend so much time at the track, I would take the Mustang. With the wing, thank you very much. It just suits my style of driving. And James almost agreed with me. But since he lives downtown and maybe isn't as used to Canadian winters as I am, he chose the comfort and all-wheel drive security of the G70. So in the end, it comes down to you. Both of these are epic cars in their own right, and both, without a doubt, will put a smile on your face.
I'm sick of you buying. James, I'm sick.
I was gonna do it that time. Yeah, go.
James, I'm sick of that. Oh, you don't like voice breaks?
Oh my god, this is ridiculous. Okay.
James, I'm sick of you buying.
I can't deal with it. Can I just leave the camera here?
James, I'm sick of you. This is hard enough, isn't it?
I know, I'm sorry. I tried to think of anything else that time.